Good afternoon, my friends, and welcome to the video. This is the top 10 most useful cards for beginners. Could also be considered the top 10 most useful crafts for beginners as well. I haven't made the title yet. I'm recording it here. But all the cards on the list are neutral cards. And this is not necessarily a coincidence. There are some very good faction-specific cards. And maybe I'll do a video for them on their own. But obviously these are on the list because of their broadness to use. And beginners need cards which are quite broad to use. Okay, so we're going to go over the cards and I'll talk about what's so good about them and how you can use them in certain ways and why you should craft them basically. So I'm going to say Royal Decree, and it wasn't easy for me to put this one in because it's a golden special card, legendary, so it costs 800 to craft, and I realize beginners are not made of scrap, and it's pretty hard to recommend a card like Royal Decree which plays a unit from your deck that it doesn't actually do anything. Well, it does a lot, but you know what I mean. It won't really make a massive impact to an existing deck if you haven't got any cards that are worth pulling or that are going to make a big impact. So it's not going to make a massive impact immediately, but as a card which is going to stick with you for the rest of your Gwent career, this is a card which is it's going to be good at all the times. It can never be dead, really. It plays any unit you want from your deck, so it'll hit those really powerful cards that when you get them, it will hit them, and you can get them consistently if you get this card, I guess. And consistency is difficult in this version of Gwent over the previous version. Thinning is difficult in this version. We don't have many tutors, and this is a tutor for any unit you want. It's quite expensive to put in a deck, but as a beginner, you'll be able to put in a lot of high strength cards like this to begin with, because you'll have some spare revision cap left. But it's just a powerful card that will be useful for every deck, for every card, for the rest of your career if you want to put it in. So it is definitely a good card worth having. It's just the thing of that it's not really going to improve your deck straight away with like a massive finisher would do. If you haven't got that massive finisher already. So just be aware of that before you craft it. So we've got Garrett Agni, and this is a classic. He's always been around since the start of the game, and he's always been good. And he is good now. He's a 2 strength, golden legendary, so he costs 800. And that's quite expensive for a beginner. It's definitely not the most important legendary to craft, but he's definitely going to gain you value throughout your entire life of Gwent again, I think. It's quite expensive provision wise. When you deploy him on the melee row, destroy the highest unit or units on an enemy row if the total of that row is 15 or more power. Now 15 or more power is not difficult to achieve. I've only got 2 rows now, by the way, so that's not too bad. So the issue is he's 2 strength, so if you only hit something of 7, then for provision wise and the cost to craft, it wasn't worth it. But you do have the potential to get really high value with him. If anyone does any sexy shenanigans where they boost one unit up really high, there's a couple of culprits for this. A glaze, people do that all the time. You need to have last say for that though. She-Troll of Bergen is a really good one. That's quite common. Or Kahir. There's a few of them that really try and just go all in on one unit. He'll deal with it quite easily. But you should always try and take something that does damage, mastercrafted spears, or just damaging units, so you can try and set up a more valued Garrett Agni on several units and line them up ready for more value. You could even take Wyvern Scale shields and boost the opponent into a leveled Garrett Agni. He's a decent card. I do think you'll get value with him most games really, so it should be fine. Here we got our boy Cleaver. This is a 3 strength gold epic, so again costs 200 to craft. So he has the ability on deploy to damage a unit by 1 for every card in your hand, and he has a reach of 2, so he can hit everything if he's on the melee row. He costs 9 provisions too. So the maximum hand size is 10, so the maximum damage you can do is 9, but 3 plus 9 is very good value for 9 provisions. Most likely you won't get 9, but if they're in like round 2 or 3 and they play something really annoying like Siri Dash or Siri, and you just want to kill that thing off very quickly, this guy will do the job very easily. And it also kills things off that they try and make safe with the Thunderbolt potion. Most likely you'll probably get, I don't know, 6-7 damage from him. Still makes him a, you know, a 9 to 10 value card. If you're playing Nilfgaard with Emir, you can pick him up and replay him. He's got a very strong deployability, which is what Emir wants. He's just a very good, valuable card, and removal is very important in this game. So having the removal to remove something very important is very good. So on a value standpoint, he's just very good. Now, what we're starting to see emerge, though, is a lot of people are playing artifacts very early. So, you know, your mastercrafted spears, your wyvern scale shields, your thunderbolt potions, and all that. So if they're doing that, you've got nothing to hit, and so his value will decrease. So just be careful of that meta that might progress soon. So we've got Roach. This girl is a 4 strength gold epic, so again costs 200 to craft, and she's just really good. You know, whenever you play a gold card, so it can be a special card now, summon this unit from your deck to a random allied row. The 9 provisions is just a nice bit of thinning for beginners, and to be honest, beginners have the 9 provisions to spare. It improves your Witcher trio. It improves, you know, any gold that you might play, really, and you play a lot more golds now because there are no silvers in the game. So it's just it's a really nice card, and to be honest, even if it doesn't go in every deck, as a beginner, if you have the choice to put it in, you always want the choice of having Roach for the rest of your Gwent career, because it's a card which gives you the thinning, gives you a little extra burst. And there are going to be some synergies down the line when you get maybe Nilfgaard or Sire. You can put this card back into your deck, and a Sire is a gold card, so Roach comes immediately back out, because that's the order of operations. You play a Sire, put Roach back in the deck, and he comes out because you played a Sire. You've also got that Skellige guy, which switches your graveyard and your deck around, so you can replay Roach. I forget what it's called. But there are multiple ways to use Roach multiple times, and so it's definitely a card worth having for a lot of people. Obviously, it costs 200 for the standard variation, so it's up to you. So next up, I'm going to recommend Dimeritium Shackles here. This is a bronze special card, and it's common. So it only costs 30 to actually craft, and that means while it's very cheap, you're also very likely to get it in a keg by yourself. Okay, but it locks a unit and damages it by 3. You can have 2 of these in a deck, and it costs 5 provisions. So, you know, 3 damage and a lock. The lock is going to provide you with probably a lot more value than just the 3, especially if it's on a really powerful card like a She-Troll or Imler of Sabbath or something like that. So you get a lot of value from this. It's a very good card, in fact. You can have 2 of them in a deck. Obviously, like I said, you might get this just naturally in kegs very quickly, so do hold off doing it straight away, because you don't want to waste resources. But there are alternatives, again, which are more expensive. Doragari of Vol is one. He's a 6 strength epic, so he costs 200 to craft, but he costs 8 provisions, and he just locks the unit. So it's 6 strength and a lock for 8 provisions. Now, the 3 extra strength you get costs you 3 extra provisions. So whether that's a good mix, I think it's about the same. You know, you can either put 1 card in of this or 2 Dimeritium Shackles. Obviously, it's more expensive to craft, so the Dimeritium Shackles are still better, and you're more likely to get them from kegs. So they're still very good cards. And finally, I bring your attention to Aguara. This is a 6 strength legendary, so this costs loads more to craft, and it costs a little bit more provisions. But this can lock a unit or remove a lock. So you get for that extra 1 provision over Doragari, you get the flexibility of unlocking your own unit. Obviously, that's only important in decks where you have a unit that you want to keep the value. So if you want to keep that She-Troll unlocked, or you want to keep that Imlerith unlocked, she is a better choice, but she's way more expensive. So I think going back down to the Dimeritium Shackle level is just very good for beginners. You know, it's cheap, you're more likely to get it in kegs, so don't craft it straight away. It's still a very good choice to get Dimeritium Shackle. But these are some alternatives if you want to spend a bit more money and go for something a bit bigger. This also has Beast Synergy, you know, which is pretty nice. And just bear in mind that this is an alchemy card, so Skellige can pull this with, I think it's Ermion. He can pull alchemy cards from the deck, so that's pretty useful. So we've got the Golden Froth, if you want to have a drink, which I know I do. Oh god. And it is delicious. So you can craft it just because it's delicious, but it's a bronze special card and it's rare. So it costs 80 scraps to craft, which is not too bad. Because it's rare though, you may get it in kegs naturally. So just think about that before maybe you go in. But it does make quite a big impact. It boosts all units on a row by 2. And the row limit is 9. So if you've got 9 units, then that's 18 points. And 18 points for a bronze is insane value. It's really powerful. Now it's quite high provision cost. You need to get about 4 to 5 units hit to make that worth it, but that shouldn't be too difficult. It's just it's a very nice card in that respect. And remember that monsters have Monster Nest, and Monster Nest will spawn 4 1-strength Arachas, so that'll fill up the board very quickly. Skellige can actually tutor alchemy cards, which I think it's Ermion that can do that. So you've got that potential synergy as well. And it's just a nice valuable card if you stack on a row for any purpose, and you can have 2 of them in a deck. It's quite a powerful card in that respect. So we've got the Master Crafted Spear, and this is a little bit of a surprise, but anyone that's played Gwent Homecoming recently knows how important this card is. It just enables such a broad spectrum of deck strategies and card combos, and you know, it's nice value as well. It's 5 provisions, which is pretty cheap, and it just synergizes with all these things. And if you play at the earliest opportunity, the maximum value you can get from it is 10. If you play all in, but most of the time you'll get 6 or 7, and for 5 provisions that's pretty good. So it's got Zeal and the order to damage a unit by 1 and cooldown of 1, but it'll get that 6 or 7 value, but it'll also do the deck strategies and card combos. So it can synergize with Skellige's Bloodthirst mechanic, where the enemy needs X amount of damaged units on the board to get benefits. It can also synergize with Regius, who's a very powerful finisher and is on this list as well, where he needs a unit with 1 strength on the opponent's row, a unit with 2 strength on the opponent's row, and 3 and 4 and 5. And the more you can set up, the better it is. And this spear just is instrumental for that kind of thing. It can also help set up things like Scorch, things like Epidemic, things like Garrett Agni. It can also just do that extra bit of removal to actually remove a unit. So if they've got a 4 strength unit, which is quite annoying and scary, but you've only got a 3 strength removal, you can do the 3 strength removal and finish it off with the spear. You could also hit your own units, and there's a multitude of reasons you might want to do this. Skellige has several units which, you know, when wounded get benefits, like the Queen's Guard for instance. You might want to destroy a Rot Tosser cow carcass, for instance, or maybe weaken something else that is played against you. There's a multitude of reasons, and it's just so flexible, good value. You can see why pretty much most people take it in their decks, and definitely all the best decks. So we've got Sihil. This is a powerful, often round winning artifact. It's gold and is legendary, so it'll cost you 800 to craft. Now that's quite expensive for a beginner. It can be put in any deck, but the deck's got to be offensive. You got to do damage, you know, so you can set up for Sihil. But it's got Zeal, and the order is to damage an enemy by 1 and cooldown of 1. So at the minute it's like a Mastercrafted Spear. Whenever Sihil destroys an enemy, increase Sihil's order damage by 1 until moved from the battlefield. So, you know, it'll eventually do 2 damage, then 3 damage, then 4 damage, then 5 if you keep killing units. And that's basically what the whole thing's about. You have to have an offensive deck so you can set up to kill things with Sihil. You know, hit something down to 1, finish it with Sihil. Hit something down to 2, finish it with Sihil. Hit something down to 3, finish it with Sihil, and so forth. And it's just a round winning card if left on the board. Now, it can be removed, obviously. Artifact removal is, everyone probably takes some. So I do recommend, if you can, to take the Caretaker with it. Caretaker can resurrect this. Now, it will lose any damage it had, but still, they'll probably remove it very early, so you'll be able to resurrect it very early and start from there. But yeah, it can go in any deck as long as the deck's offensive. It's better in some decks than others. I think Scoia'tael is a great faction for it. They've got a lot of flexible damage options, like the Dolblafana Archer, which can do 2-1 damage or 1-2 damage. We've got Agni, which can do 3 1-strength pings to really fine-tune the amount that it can actually take a unit down to kill it, and you can use it over multiple turns, which is really good. So, you know, combine it with a Mastercrafted Spear and things like that. It's just a really powerful card. Now, it doesn't synergize with Regius, because Regius doesn't want to actually kill the units that's on the row, because he's trying to set up the 1, 2, 3, 4 thing. So it's just a really powerful card though if it sticks on the board. So next up we've got the Frenzied Dhow. This is a 7 strength gold epic, and so it costs 200 to craft. It costs 8 provisions, and on deploy destroys an enemy artifact. So this is really nice because everyone should be taking some artifact removal. I always recommend taking at least one and saving it for the really, because there's a lot of powerful artifacts. You save them for those really big ones like Sihil, because they can win rounds, so you need to definitely try and remove them. But it costs 8 provisions, and 7 strength for 8 provisions is already pretty good, and it destroys an enemy artifact. So what makes this so good is that it's neutral, so everyone can have it, but it never feels quite so bad to play if they didn't have an artifact. If you play a 4 strength artifact removal or a special card like D-Bomb or White Frost and the enemy didn't play any artifacts, they can feel quite bad, but the Frenzied Dhow actually feels reasonably good. It's not too bad. It's got some synergies as well, so for monsters you could consume it in your hand and draw another card. If you're playing Reveal Nilfgaard, when you hit that Reveal slot machine, it's a nice 7 strength, which is more than likely going to be one of the higher strength units that you can pair. So it's got some really nice stuff. Doesn't feel bad if they don't play artifacts and you just have to play a 7 strength. So all in all, it's a very good card, and definitely worth having in a lot of decks. So next we've got Regis. This is a very powerful finisher card for any deck. As long as that deck is offensive, it does damage. Maybe it's got mastercrafted spears to really fine tune that, so you can set up for its ability. It's a 2 strength gold legendary, so it costs 800, which is pretty expensive for a beginner, but it will make a massive impact for a finisher. So its ability is on deploy, damage all enemies on a row by 1, and if any were destroyed, repeat this ability. And if any were destroyed in the repeat, does it again, and then again and again and again if it keeps destroying stuff. So the ideal way is to set it up with a 1 strength unit on an opponent's row, and then a 2 strength unit, then a 3, then a 4, then a 5, anywhere on the row, and it will just keep doing it if it keeps killing something, and you'll get massive value until it wipes the entire row out. Now, if you're going to craft this, I just want to make a little thing. I reckon this card might get balanced or nerfed, because it's quite powerful. So just make sure the ability is what it says here if you go to craft it later on in the future, because it may change. I think this might be a card that changes a little bit. They might put a cap on it or something. But it is a powerful finish for any deck, so take the mastercrafted spear. It's better in some decks than others. You've got things like Scoia'tael. They've got a lot of flexibility with some of their bronzes and the damage they can do, like the Dolblafana Archer. It could do 2 damage to a unit and set this up very nicely, or if that's not the right amount of value, it can do 2 1 strength damages and set it up really nicely there. They've also got their leader card Agni, which can do 3 1 strength pings and really help set this up very neatly. But most decks can run it and use it quite effectively if they have removal or damaging cards. But be aware that I think people will start recognizing that you're going for Regis, and all they need to do is boost their weakest card, their 1 strength card, so that he only does 1 pass and not many passes, especially if they've got a Wyvern Scale shield, because then they can just keep increasing that 1 strength unit over and over and over again.